Sri Lanka in the post-conflict era, and the value of the Chinese contribution made for economic development in Sri Lanka. Then he spoke about the significance of food security and tourism, etc. In addition to that, he touched upon the need for regional cooperation, both in terms of bilateral trade and multilateral trade. And also he presented us with an overview of Pakistani policy on regional cooperation. I wish to add value to something what he mentioned. He said since the peace has returned to the country, that now we can the maritime safety is very much assured, and we can concentrate on other forces such as drug peddling and smuggling, human trafficking, etc. I want to add some value to what he said. In 2001, the MI5 desk officer who was handling the LTT desk for British intelligence spoke for the first time after 15 years of his experience. He said, the LTT is not even a minute threat to any of the Western nations. And they were so clever in their foreign policy that they kept the conflict completely away from the Western nations and confined it rather to the region and to Sri Lanka. So to justify that, I can cite one example. When the airport base, the Sri Lanka, the Katunayake airport was attacked, following the attack they carried out on the Air Force base in Katunayake, they waited for several hours until all the foreign airlines cleared the apron. When they came for the attack, only the Sri Lankan Airlines planes were on the apron. So that clearly, that justifies what the MI5 desk officer said in 2001, Dolamo. And then Lieutenant General Mullah Fazle Akbar, he spoke about the significance of Indian Ocean Theatre and international dimensions and the dynamics, and then the rise of terrorism, and then the Bangladesh government support for the peace in Sri Lanka. So with that, I wish to open the discussion to the forum to direct any questions to any of the three eminent speakers who spoke on three dimensions of the regional perspective. Over to you, to the forum. Please.
Thank you, sir. I am Wing Commander Munim from... Can I, sir? I'm Wing Commander Munim from Bangladesh. Sorry for taking your time, the audience. It's the late hour of the day. So the nature of the conflict in Southeast Asia, especially the countries in Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, is mainly the ideological or the ethnic empowerment. Rather than we have seen in many conflicts in Africa, which is mainly the gaining of economic control of the natural resources. Many countries across Africa that we have witnessed. Mr. Murthy, if I can kindly utter, he said the political solution of the ethnic conflict is vital. So we have witnessed such solution in Bangladesh because we have curbed the insurgency in Bangladesh, and the Shanti Bahini, they have surrendered politically and merged with the society and taking part in the developing activities across Bangladesh now. So my question is especially on India and Pakistan, that are you taking the lesson learned in the curbing the ethnic crisis in Sri Lanka, and how are you going to manage it? Because you have many ethnic problems prevailing in the countries in the greater India and also Pakistan. So how are you going to take lesson learned from this beautiful country and apply in your area? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the question. As you would have known as a neighbor, basically India has been using the same carrot and stick policy. There is also the stick issues first, and we have noticed that in almost every solution that has been found is through political solution. And one thing we have to learn from the Indian examples, particularly in the northeastern states, many of these organizations, whether they are political in nature or militant in nature, once you hand them over power, within 2 years they dissipate. There will be either infighting because they can only, like a permanent political opposition, they can only shout, they can only fight. They cannot run government. Hand them over the government and they will collapse. That is one practical way of looking at things. Or they will be mainstreamed. That's also there. See, running a government for, as I mentioned about the TNA, they have none of the Tamil parties, other than those are part of the government in Colombo, have any political administrative experience. Either they learn or they fail. The people, their people in particular, wherever there is a insurgency operation or a political demand, as in the case of Telangana right now in India or other areas, if they are political demand, there has never been any violence of that nature, other than some suicides, etc. Many of those suicides are also questionable. So, when this comes, you hand them over power. Either they get mainstream themselves. In the 70s, we had a same Telangana movement. Finally, that party merged in the Congress party, which was a national party. In the Northeast, almost in every state, the insurgent group that was handed over power. So you have to learn one thing from the Indian mainstream polity. Whenever there is an agreement with the insurgent group, they allow them to win elections or hand them over power, tell the local people, invite the local people at that moment won't be voting for you. 5 years there will be infighting or people will be disillusioned because people's expectation from their leaders, insurgent leaders or whatever you call, is greater than from a legitimate government. So when these people from insurgency come into the mainstream and try to run a government, they don't know how to run it. They become failures, they become corrupt, all that things that they were blaming the mainline polity or the government or the state of. I think this is an experience, and not all problems in India are ethnic. There are other issues. For instance, the Naxalites issue is not an ethnic issue. See, a large and complex situation. If you take Sri Lanka, there was this JVP issue. It was originally it was not a 71 JVP issue. It was left militancy per se. The same JVP, 15 years later, became left singular nationalist militancy. So all these things also transform, mutate. These things happen everywhere. Thank you.
And since the question was directed to Pakistan as well, I would expect Ambassador Suhail, the Suhail Amin to make the value addition.
Well, I would just like to mention to answer your last part of your question, which was that these problems are of, in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they are of ethnic nature. This is not the case in Pakistan. It's not an ethnic issue at all. It is totally a different subject. We are dealing with extremism and radicalism. Ethnicity is not involved in it.
There was a hand going up there. Yes, Yato.
So I am Lieutenant Colonel Chandana Vikramasinghe. My question goes back to Mr. Satyamurthy. And my question goes back to Mr. Satyamurthy. Why Indian think tanks not articulating a strategy to soften the South Indian anti-Sri Lankan sentiments, considering the stability of Sri Lanka and also in the context of India being one of our major this thing. And for me, I believed the stable Sri Lanka is always a matter for the India stable. So as a India in the contemporary history, so this one is, I believe, the anti-Sri Lankan sentiments aggravated is that has to be addressed from your side, sir, especially by using a media, I think.
Thank you, officer. I do share the same view. That is what I was saying. India and Sri Lanka are mutually dependent when it comes to security, stability, whatever we call. It is not as if the Indian think tanks are not working on this issue, one. Two, let us accept in South Asia as a whole think tanks, particularly in India, are very young. See, maybe because we did not have that kind of a problem, we didn't have too many think tanks, and government was taking its decision on its own. But definitely these days, see, I am a member of a think tank. I am here, and I have been coming here almost every 3 months for the past nearly 10 years. It is not necessary that every think tank and every member of every think tank should be working on India, Sri Lanka stability or whatever. See, for instance, India has got a, you can call it a problem, benefit or whatever. We have one foot in South Asia, another foot elsewhere in the world. So, various think tanks will be studying on various issues, and even inside India there are enough issues, problems, ethnic, ecology, economy, what you call what. All of these things are there, and most think tanks are subject specific. In possibly Observer Research Foundation, to which I belong, is the only Indian think tank that is multifaceted and multidimensional. So they are doing their work, and likewise there should also be a cooperation from this side, partners and players. Unfortunately, again, we should accept in what I said about the political leadership in both countries is also true of think tanks and academics. We take perceptions. How many of you, I don't know, have traveled to India, spent time, and even if they go to think tanks, I'm also addressing the army and other think tank leaders here. Please do not give any assignment to your guy that you have to produce a paper in 3 weeks or a book in 3 months. First, let them learn each other's country. Because I came here on my own, spending my money, just as a doctor or an engineer or anyone will be, a lawyer will be investing on books. I came here regularly to understand Sri Lanka before I even started working on Sri Lanka. Thankfully, because I was writing a column in a Sri Lankan newspaper, and my face became familiar, my column became popular, a lot of doors opened for me. It need not be the case for every think tank and every academic who goes to another country. He will always be looked upon with suspicion. Those things have to be overcome, but a lot of facilities can be offered mutually.
Since the foreign delegates have to join us sightseeing too at 5 o'clock, we can accommodate one more question, a brief question. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Satyamurthy, if I may. Arun Tamimuthu here. Just talking of lessons learned, and learning is part of this current sort of trend at the moment. Do you think that there's an honest evaluation within India, especially whether it's think tanks or even the political circles, on India's role in the emergence of terrorism in Sri Lanka? Especially I'm talking about the period between 1978 till 87, because we know about the Indolanka Accord and so on, but it's curious from our part, on my part especially, whether there's been an honest evaluation and discussion, and even to a greater degree an understanding on India's role during that period. Thank you.
First, Arun, I will start with correcting the date. I don't think it is from 78 to 87. It is 84, 83, 84.
I beg to differ, sir. In fact, going and discussing these matters in Batticaloa in the last 3 years, what I discovered is that soon after the cyclone in 78, there was Indian intelligence personnel were active, and there are some evidence to suggest that. Thank you.
I doubt. I don't think that's. See, the problem is, even day before yesterday, someone had said that Indian intelligence people are going to Jaffna as selling saris and things like that. I don't think people have to do that. Sitting in their offices, there are, in a country like Sri Lanka or India or anywhere, people are ready to go and dump them with information. Unfortunate. That is a case with our countries. But this is happening. So it was not in 78 as far as I have researched. Maybe I have to give you the benefit of the doubt, but it happened only after the 80th, this thing.
I'll share some information on that subject. But regardless, as far as its role, even if you take it from 84, What
Yes,
do you?
see, definitely yes. There is an understanding. If you take the Indian position during Elam War 4, that is clear that India has gone through its studies, has come to a certain conclusion, right? All countries make mistakes, all countries make re-evaluation, but you should also contextualize it. Please, LTT was here, Tamil, even before LTT came, Pan-Tamil militancy was in this country from the early 70s. Alfred Duraipa was killed in 75, not even in 78, right? You as a Tamil and a Tamil politician now know who was behind it, right? Prabhakaran was a hand that held the trigger, right? So intra-Tamil politics was playing its part. And these kind of things have these are multidimensional. For instance, India was concerned, particularly after the past experience. We didn't want Tamil refugees from this country there because of the demographic changes that would have affected. If you look at Elam War 4, one of the imperatives that really came out of the process, though I don't think anyone from India demanded it, but various options seem to have been worked out here. No Tamil refugee in those kind of numbers. We are talking about 250,000 Tamil refugees in India at that time. It was a big issue for India as a state. What started off as keeping Tamils in Sri Lanka to secure themselves after Black July, right? There may have been elements who may have worked that way. At the end of the day, you can't say Cyril Matthew was an Indian or Cyril Matthew was an Indian agent. These kind of things, yes, we learn. Just as there have been elements. You mentioned 78 or 83 or whatever. There was 71. Let us accept that. Right? There were elements within the Indian bureaucratic structure or a security structure. They may have felt hurt by 71. See, if we start digging back, there is no end to it. We have to move forward, look forward. Today, as the ambassador and the general mentioned, one thing I would like to mention before concluding. Since Second World War, every major war has been coming closer to South Asia. Today you take ideology, terrorism, of whatever name you call, and India, Pakistan and China, let us accept, we have got issues. All of us are nuclear powers. And every war, if you take from, no war has been fought in the US. No war has been fought, major war. You can say Kosovo compared to the kind of battles that have been fought in Asia, like Vietnam or somewhere, Iraq, was, I think, nothing. Though people suffered there also. So as far as regional stability is concerned, South Asia has to work together. Whatever be the past, whatever be the future, but we have to work today at present. Thank you.
With Mr. Thambimuthu's question and Mr. Satyamurthy's response, I wish to conclude the session and allow the proceedings to take place further.